My name is Quinn Hartley, and at 27 years old, I'm sitting in my Nashville loft staring at a FedEx envelope that just shattered my reality. The afternoon sun slants through industrial windows, illuminating dust motes that dance above my vintage drafting table. I've spent the morning designing album covers for indie musicians. The career I built from scratch after my parents insisted graphic design wasn't a real job. My hands still smell like the Vietnamese coffee I picked up on the way home, the kind my mother would call unnecessarily exotic when Folgers exists. The envelope arrived 30 minutes ago. Inside, estate documents for my grandmother Florence, who died 3 months ago at 92. I'd skipped the funeral. My parents made it clear I wasn't welcome after I refused to loan them money for the third time this year. But it's the property deed that stops my heart. The cabin in Gatlinburg. The one where Grandma Florence taught me to paint watercolors every summer. The one with the wraparound porch where I'd sketch mountain views while she hummed old gospel songs. According to these documents, she left it to me, only to me. My phone buzzes. A text from my younger brother Tyler. Dad says you stole Grandma's cabin. Fix this? I stare at the message confused. Stole? The deed literally has my name on it. Another text, this time from my mother. We're discussing legal action. That cabin was meant for the whole family. You've always been selfish. My coffee goes cold as I scroll through my email. They're sent yesterday from my father's account to someone named Gerald Pritchard, attorney at law. We need to discuss my mother's estate. My daughter Quinn has taken possession of property that rightfully belongs to the family. Florence wasn't in her right mind when she changed the will. The will was changed? When? I dig through the FedEx envelope again, finding a letter in Grandma Florence's shaky handwriting, dated 6 months before her death. My dearest Quinn, your parents have asked me to put the cabin in their names for tax purposes. They don't know I understand what that means. They've been pressuring me for months, calling every day, visiting with papers for me to sign. I'm leaving the cabin to you because you're the only one who loved it for what it was, not what it's worth. They want to sell it for the land value. I heard them discussing it when they thought I was napping. Don't let them guilt you. You owe them nothing. Love always, Grandma. My hands tremble as I set down the letter. The cabin is worth maybe $380,000. A fortune for a structure that's 60 years old and needs work. But it's worth millions to developers who've been trying to buy up that ridge for years. I pull up my parents' Facebook. There's my mother's post from this morning. Heartbroken that greed has torn our family apart. Praying for my daughter to do the right thing. 43 comments of sympathy from people who have no idea what the right thing actually means. My phone rings. Dad's name flashes on the screen. I don't answer. Instead, I open my laptop and search for real estate attorneys in Tennessee. If they want to fight, they'll get one. But this time, I'm not the daughter who caves to guilt. The next morning, I'm parked outside Grandma Florence's cabin for the first time since her funeral that I wasn't invited to. The key feels heavy in my palm, a physical reminder that she chose me. The Smoky Mountains rise behind the property, still touched with morning mist. The cabin looks exactly as I remember. Weathered cedar siding, the porch swing where I'd read for hours, the studio window where Florence painted until her hands couldn't hold a brush anymore. I'm fitting the key into the lock when a truck pulls into the gravel driveway. My father emerges, his face red even from a distance. You have no right to be here, he calls, striding toward me with that authoritative walk that used to make me shrink. Actually, I have every right. I hold up the deed. Grandma left this to me. She was confused, medicated. He stops 3 feet away, close enough that I can smell his cologne. The same one he's worn my entire life. We're her children. The cabin should have been divided equally. Then why did she specifically write in her will that she wanted me to have it? His jaw tightens. Your mother and I have been maintaining this property for years, paying the taxes, handling repairs. I pull out my phone, opening my banking app. That's interesting because I have records of Grandma paying her own property taxes through automatic withdrawal, and I have receipts from the handyman she hired for repairs. I'd spent last night combing through the documents the estate attorney sent. You haven't paid for anything. Don't you dare speak to your father that way. I'm not speaking to my father. I'm speaking to someone trying to steal property that isn't his. Mom's car appears next, tires crunching on gravel. She emerges with Tyler trailing behind, his expression caught between embarrassment and anger. Quinn, please. Mom's voice carries that wounded tone that always made me fold. We're family. We can work this out without lawyers. You already contacted a lawyer, Mom. I saw Dad's email. Her face flushes. We were just exploring our options. Your options to take something that Grandma explicitly left to me. I shake my head. She wrote me a letter. She knew what you were planning. Tyler speaks for the first time. Just sell it and split the money. That's fair. Fair would have been showing up at Grandma's funeral. Fair would have been visiting her more than twice a year when you wanted something. My voice cracks slightly. I spent every summer here with her. Every holiday. When she got sick, I was the one driving down every weekend. Where were you? We were busy, Mom starts. Being busy isn't the same as being there. I turn back to the cabin door, sliding the key home. The lock clicks open, a sound like permission, like validation. This conversation is over, I say. But if you want to discuss this further, contact my attorney. Melissa Zhang at Ridgemont Legal. I'll make sure she has your information. Melissa Zhang's office smells like lavender and leather, a combination that somehow feels both professional and calming. She's younger than I expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a reputation for winning property disputes. Tell me everything, she says, sliding a legal pad across her desk. I walk her through it, Grandma's letter, my parents' pressure campaign, their Facebook posts painting me as the villain, their claims about maintaining the property despite evidence to the contrary. Melissa makes notes in quick, efficient strokes. Do you have documentation of your relationship with your grandmother? I pull out my phone, scrolling through photos. Every summer from age 8 to 25, holidays, weekend visits during her illness. I show her the hundreds of pictures. Me and Grandma painting on the porch, hiking mountain trails, sitting by the fire pit. And your parents? Maybe 10 photos in the last decade, all at family gatherings they couldn't avoid. She nods, adding to her notes. The will is ironclad. Your grandmother was of sound mind, evaluated by her physician just 2 months before her death. She used her own attorney, someone she'd worked with for 30 years. Melissa looks up. Your parents have no legal standing, but they can make this expensive and drawn out. Let them try. Before we proceed, I need you to understand something. Her voice softens. Family disputes are brutal. They'll say things, do things that can't be taken back. Are you prepared for that? I think about Grandma's letter, about summers spent learning to see color in mountain shadows, about the way she'd smile when I showed her my latest design work. I am prepared to honor my grandmother's wishes, whatever it takes. That evening, I'm cataloging items in the cabin when I find Grandma's journals in the studio closet. The most recent one sits on top, her handwriting shaky but determined. March 15th, Richard and Susan called again. Third time this week about updating my estate plan. They think I don't understand. They want me to sign over the cabin. I may be old, but I'm not stupid. April 2nd, Susan brought papers today. Said it was just paperwork for tax purposes. I told her I'd have my attorney review them. She got angry, said I was being difficult. Richard implied I might need memory care if I keep being confused. April 20th, changed my will today. Quinn is the only one who ever loved this place. She's the only one who deserves it. My hands shake as I photograph each page, sending them to Melissa. Evidence of their manipulation, their threats, their calculated campaign to take what they wanted. My phone buzzes with a text from Tyler. Dad's hiring a private investigator to prove you manipulated Grandma. I respond simply, tell him to save his money.
The truth is documented.
Another text, this time from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. I forward it to Melissa without responding. Let them threaten. Let them rage. I have the law on my side and Grandma's voice in those journals. The family Facebook posts escalate over the following week. My mother shares a photo of herself crying, captioned, "When your daughter chooses money over family values." Aunt Patricia comments, "I always knew Quinn was selfish. Poor Susan." Cousin Jennifer adds, "Taking advantage of an elderly woman's confusion is elder abuse." I screenshot everything, sending it to Melissa. "This is defamation," she texts back. "Keep documenting." My phone rings constantly, relatives I haven't spoken to in years, suddenly concerned about family unity. I let them go to voicemail, focusing instead on the cabin. The property needs work. The porch boards are soft in places. The roof could use replacing, and the studio's north window won't open. I hire contractors, using money I'd been saving for a new car. Each repair feels like an act of devotion to Grandma's memory. My best friend Sienna drives down from Nashville to help me paint the porch. "Your parents are telling everyone you forged the will," she says, brush in hand. Let them. I dip my roller in sage green, Grandma's favorite color. The probate court validated everything. They're also saying you never visited her in the nursing home. That one stings, but I pull out my phone. I have the sign-in sheets. I was there every Sunday for 8 months. I show her the photos, me and Grandma, me reading to her, me brushing her hair. Sienna shakes her head. They're really committed to this narrative. They need me to be the villain. Otherwise, they'd have to admit they were the ones who abandoned her. The formal legal challenge arrives via certified mail 3 days later. My parents are contesting the will, claiming Grandma lacked capacity and that I exercised undue influence. Melissa calls immediately. This is expected. We have everything we need to fight it. Medical records, attorney testimony, the journals. But it means court. When? Hearing is set for 6 weeks from now. I spend those 6 weeks gathering evidence. I contact Grandma's physician, who provides a statement about her mental clarity. I reach out to her neighbors, who remember my regular visits and my parents' rare appearances. I compile photos, emails, cards, a documentary of a relationship built over decades. My mother's lawyer, Gerald Pritchard, sends interrogatories, formal questions I'm required to answer under oath. How often did I visit? Did I discuss the property value with my grandmother? Did I encourage her to leave me the cabin? Melissa helps me craft responses that are truthful and strategic. They're fishing, she explains, looking for any inconsistency they can exploit. The week before the hearing, I receive a letter from my father. Not a legal document, a handwritten note on his company letterhead. Quinn, you're destroying this family. Your mother cries every night. Tyler won't speak to us about you. All over a cabin that isn't worth this pain. Let's settle this like adults. We'll buy you out at a fair price. I fold the letter and file it with the other documents. Fair price. As if love could be converted to cash. As if Grandma's trust was something to auction. The courtroom in Sevier County is smaller than I expected. All wood paneling and fluorescent lights. My parents sit across the aisle with Gerald Pritchard, a silver-haired man whose expensive suit screams Nashville money. Judge Morrison, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair, reviews documents while we wait. Melissa sits beside me, her presence steadying. All rise. The hearing begins with Pritchard's opening statement. Your Honor, this case concerns a vulnerable elderly woman, manipulated by a granddaughter, who isolated her from her family and convinced her to disinherit her own children. I force myself to breathe steadily, focusing on Melissa's earlier advice. Stay calm. The evidence speaks louder than emotion. Melissa stands for our response. Your Honor, the evidence will show that Florence Hartley was of sound mind, worked with her longtime attorney, and made a deliberate choice to leave property to the granddaughter, who maintained a close relationship with her for 19 years. My father takes the stand first, his voice heavy with practiced grief. My mother and I spoke every week. I handled her finances, made sure her bills were paid. Melissa cross-examines with surgical precision. Mr. Hartley, how many times did you visit your mother in the last year of her life? He hesitates. We spoke on the phone regularly. That wasn't my question. How many in-person visits? Maybe 5 or 6 times. Melissa produces the nursing home sign-in sheets. These records show 3 visits in 12 months. Would you like to revise your testimony? His face reddens. It's hard to get away from work, yet you found time to pressure her about estate planning? Melissa slides his emails into evidence. Messages where he discusses the cabin's development potential. Messages about making sure the property stays in the family. Messages sent to real estate developers about the land value. My mother's testimony crumbles similarly. She claims she was very close to Grandma but can't name her physician. Doesn't know her favorite hymn. Can't recall the last book she read to her. Then it's my turn. Melissa walks me through the summers at the cabin, the weekend visits during Grandma's illness, the hundreds of phone calls logged on my records. Miss Hartley, did you know the cabin's value when your grandmother left it to you? I knew it was probably worth something, but I never asked. It wasn't about money. What was it about? My voice steadies. It was about honoring the woman who taught me that art matters, who believed in my career when my parents called it foolish, who created a space where I could be myself without judgment. I meet my mother's gaze across the courtroom. Grandma left me that cabin because I loved her, and not because I loved what she owned. The hearing concludes with Grandma's attorney testifying about her mental clarity, her explicit instructions, her concern about her son's development plans. Judge Morrison doesn't need long to deliberate. I've reviewed all submitted evidence. Judge Morrison's voice fills the small courtroom. Florence Hartley's will is clear, properly executed, and demonstrates no signs of undue influence or diminished capacity. I feel Melissa's hand squeeze mine briefly under the table. The medical records confirm she was evaluated by her physician 2 months before her death and found to be of sound mind. Her attorney of 30 years testified to her clarity and specific intentions. The judge looks directly at my parents. Furthermore, the documentation provided by Miss Quinn Hartley demonstrates a sustained, meaningful relationship with the deceased spanning 19 years. My father's jaw tightens. My mother stares at her hands. The journals kept by Florence Hartley provide additional context. Judge Morrison holds up the photocopies. They document repeated attempts by her son and daughter-in-law to pressure her regarding property decisions. They express explicit concern about their motivations. Gerald Pritchard shifts uncomfortably in his seat. This court finds no basis to overturn Florence Hartley's will. The cabin and property at 847 Ridgeview Lane are hereby confirmed as the sole property of Quinn Hartley. She brings down her gavel. Case dismissed. The sound echoes in the silent courtroom. I close my eyes briefly, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders.
Not triumphant, just relieved.
My parents stand immediately, Gerald Pritchard gathering papers quickly. My mother's face is tear-streaked, but she won't look at me. My father's expression is pure fury. This isn't over, he says as they pass. You've destroyed this family. No, I reply quietly. I just refuse to let you rewrite Grandma's story. Outside, the afternoon sun warm on my face, Melissa grins. That was decisive. Judge Morrison doesn't waste time. What happens now? They could appeal, but they won't win. The evidence is overwhelming. She packs her briefcase. The property is yours, free and clear. I drive back to the cabin alone. The deed officially in my name. No clouds hanging over it anymore. The Smoky Mountains rise in the distance, eternal and unmoved by human drama. Inside, I walk through rooms filled with Grandma's presence. Her easel in the studio, her favorite chair by the window, her books lining the shelves. I find myself in the studio standing where she taught me to see light and shadow. My phone buzzes. Tyler, Mom and Dad are moving to Arizona. Said they can't stay in Tennessee with the humiliation. I don't respond. Let them move. Let them tell their version to people who don't know the truth. Another text from Sienna. Saw the court filing. You won! Coming down this weekend to celebrate. I smile, typing back, bring paintbrushes. The studio needs refreshing. That evening, I sit on the porch swing with a glass of wine, watching sunset paint the mountains in shades. Grandma taught me to name alizarin crimson, cadmium orange, violet dusk. My phone rings one final time. Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail, the boundary now permanent and clear. Some bridges burn for good reason. 6 months later, the cabin has transformed. Fresh paint, new roof, restored porch boards. The studio window opens smoothly now, letting in mountain air and inspiration. I've converted 2 upstairs bedrooms into a design studio and guest space. Most weeks I split time between Nashville and Gatlinburg. My graphic design clients not caring where I create as long as deadlines are met. The cabin has become something Grandma would love, a working artist's retreat that I occasionally open to other designers and painters. Last month, I hosted a watercolor workshop for 8 students, teaching techniques Grandma taught me on this same porch. Sienna arrives most weekends, bringing her veterinary textbooks and studying at the kitchen table while I work in the studio. We've fallen into an easy rhythm of friendship and creative coexistence. Your mom sent me a Facebook friend request. Sienna mentions over coffee one Saturday morning. Block her. Already did. Just wanted you to know she's still trying to find ways in. I've heard through mutual acquaintances that my parents settled in Scottsdale, telling neighbors about their ungrateful daughter who stole family property. The story they tell has no resemblance to truth, but I've stopped trying to correct it. Tyler sends occasional texts. Awkward attempts to maintain some connection without taking sides. I respond politely, but don't encourage deeper conversation. Some relationships can't survive the truth. The property has attracted interest from developers as Grandma predicted. I've received offers as high as $620,000, nearly double what I expected. Each one goes straight to my delete folder. This isn't about money. It never was. Today, I'm adding Grandma's name to small plaque beside the studio door. Florence Hartley, artist, teacher, truth teller. The brass catches afternoon light as I secure it in place. Inside, my current project covers the main easel, a series of album covers for a folk musician from Knoxville. The designs incorporate mountain landscapes and watercolor techniques I learned at Grandma's side. My phone chimes with a payment notification. Another client, another project funded by Skills. Grandma encouraged when everyone else said art couldn't pay bills. You prove them all wrong, I say to the empty studio, though it doesn't feel empty. Her presence lingers in the way light falls through north-facing windows, in the particular blue of the walls, in the worn spot on the floor where her easel stood for decades. Evening finds me on the porch swing again, this time with my laptop, responding to an email from a gallery in Nashville, interested in showing some of my design work. The mountains are painting themselves in twilight colors, indigo, violet, deepening blue. I save Grandma's journals in the studio safe, preserved for whenever I need reminding that some battles are worth fighting. Some inheritances are measured in more than money, and some family members honor us best by letting us go. The porch swing creaks gently, the same sound I've heard since childhood. But now it's mine to preserve, mine to share, mine to pass forward. Someday to someone who understands that home isn't
just walls and windows.
It's where someone believed in you enough to make sure you'd always have a place to create